Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Jason Wehrli with WCFab. Today we have our high flow 4-inch intake kit for the 2013 to 18 6.7 Cummins. So here's our 4-inch high flow fabricated intake kit for the 13 to 18 6.7 Cummins platform. The 13 to 18 has been a super popular platform for us over the years, and we've offered an intake system for this truck for many years. Since we moved into our new facility here 2 years ago, we've brought a lot of processes in-house, and we've really expanded and redesigned a lot of our product and made a lot of improvements on it. The 13 to 18 4-inch intake kit is one of those items that saw a recent redesign and improvement over what we used to offer. So we used to offer just a basic 4-inch intake pipe with an air filter on the end of it. They look cool, a lot of guys like the look of that, but it is obviously better to have an enclosed box around that air filter to help shield away from the engine heat and make sure you're drawing in cool air from outside the engine bay. So this air box spent a lot of time in CAD. It's a very complicated looking component, and there's a lot of bends and a lot of things going on. The factory plastic injection molded box fits into a pretty tight area. It's got a electronically actuated air valve inside of it known as active air on the 13 to 18 platform, which would essentially take the 2 intake ports, one forward facing from the headlight and one passenger side facing to the passenger fender, and essentially operate that air dam to pull air from one or the other location. So this is a feature that Cummins had on these trucks up until the 2018 model year, and then it was eliminated in 2019. So there's a lot going on in this air box, and we have a lot of time in getting this box to fit nicely in the OEM location. No need to bend or relocate any components or lines or anything else within the area. It bolts in right into the OEM location. We've got some new supplied hardware for the side mount, and then we have bung on the back side to use one of the OEM grommet mounts. One of the improvements of this airbox over factory is the increase in air intake. So as I mentioned earlier, that active air module would allow the system to pull air from one or the other, not both. So essentially your engine is breathing through either this hole or that hole. And in an application where you're running performance tuning, upgraded turbochargers, anything of the like above factory performance levels, that becomes an issue. That is going to limit the air intake the engine has and will become a restriction in making efficient, clean power. So what we've done is relocated that active air valve to the outside of the box. We include a couple mount bungs with some hardware to take the valve and mount it outside the box. It's still connected, so it doesn't throw any service engine lights. The truck still thinks it's there, working as it should, but it's not going to shut off one port or the other. So with our intake system, you're going to be getting air from both ports all the time, essentially doubling the air intake versus the factory box. And of course, ours looks a whole lot better than the piece of plastic. The top of the box is a nice, simple to remove aluminum cover. 4 stainless screws you can pop off and have access and visibility to your 4-inch high flow air filter. So the 4-inch air filter we include in all of our intake kits is a dry replaceable filter. We do not recommend oiled filters in the diesel applications. Over-oiling or excessive oil on the filters, if it gets on the intake sensors, can be really problematic to drivability and even cause engine lights. So we've always been a big proponent of using dry air filters for simplicity and ease of use. With being dry, they're not washable. You get a couple cycles out of them, you can blow them out with compressed air and reuse them until they get too dirty, then they just get replaced. We do include with all of our intake kits our water repellent outerwears cover. This cover drastically increases the life expectancy of that air filter, keeping the pleats from getting clogged up with large debris and only the finer dust getting through, which is going to make the life of the filter much longer. And of course, being water repellent keeps that filter from becoming saturated if you ever were to get into any extra wet conditions. So our 4-inch high flow filter connects to our fabricated 14 gauge 4-inch diameter aluminum intake pipe. We're replacing the factory plastic crushed pipe. We're eliminating the internal turbo silencer that comes on the inside of the factory intake. And we have a nice, smooth flowing mandrel bent pipe from the air filter all the way down to the face of the turbocharger. You'll see we include both sensor provisions for both intake sensors. In the redesigning of our intake kit for the 13 to 18 platform, not only with the box but also the intake, we spent a lot of time both on the flow bench and with test trucks getting the mass airflow sensors properly located so that this kit can be bolt-on, no tuning required. No check engine lights, no drivability issues. Bolted on right in the factory spot using all the OEM connections and sensors. You'll also notice a slight dent here on the bottom side of the intake. It's pretty visible from the camera angle there. However, once it is installed, this being the turbocharger, this being the airbox, it is hidden and not visible. That dent is strategically placed to clear the oil filter housing. We get a lot of people reach out to us after they open up their kit. They're excited, nice new powder-coated fabricated product. And hey, I got a dent in shipping or somebody dented my pipe. That is there for a reason. We wanted to get the largest pipe we could through the area with the smallest dent possible to not impede airflow. And that dent is just enough to clear that factory oil filter housing. So that is there for a reason. Last but not least, on the 4-inch intake, you will see our nice CNC machined bung here on the back side, which is for connection to your factory CCV system to keep that intake system emissions compliant. One more thing I will touch on the airbox is in front of us here we have our nice double bulb seal gaskets. This is a really nice manufactured pipe that we sourced. It has 2 air bulb seals with a nice engagement ring here. They form fit to this opening here, which is not quite a perfect circle. It's a little bit of an oval with some straight edges. But these things being rubber, they get installed right in the groove here in both ports. They are both the same size, and that creates a nice tight seal to the factory component, being the fender and the back of the headlight, to really keep out that hot engine bay air. So that's a nice feature that we include for the connection on the air intake. Additionally, we have this rubber edge seal that connects to the box where the pipe slides through, so that the pipe is not sitting metal on metal, beating away that powder coat and causing a vibration issue. Last but not least on the 4-inch intake system is our high quality, made in the USA silicone boot connection to the turbocharger. You'll notice this boot is a little narrower with a little bit smaller, different style clamp than what you would typically see on some of our other intake systems. With the space constraints between the turbocharger and the oil filter housing and wanting to get a nice, smooth mandrel bend pipe in there, we're not able to use a normal length boot there where we would use a typical T-bolt style clamp system. In order for the bead rolls to work and length of boot to be proper, we had to opt for a little bit shorter boot length, which is why we use these worm gear style clamps, which are about half the width of a conventional T-bolt. So that is why that boot looks a little smaller, and I will note that our worm gear clamps is a high quality style worm gear clamp where it does have the internal stainless liner. So when the clamp is tightened, the grooves of the worm gear is not tearing into the silicone and ruining your silicone boot. So what gains can be had with a 4-inch intake kit aside from the looks and the improved sound? The sound is one of the biggest ones. One of the most common things that people buy these metal intakes for is the better sound that they offer in addition to the looks under the hood. Don't install this intake system and expect 25 or 30 more horsepower to the wheels. That's not going to happen. If you want an intake system that bolts on and doesn't cause engine lights, we're pretty limited on what the factory mass airflow sensor can see before it gets unhappy and throws codes. So to develop an intake system that bolts on without throwing codes, we have to work within those parameters. Where you can see some large gains with this intake system, where you can see some increased horsepower gains, is when you couple an intake system like this with performance tuning. When you put performance tuning on these trucks, EFI Live, HP tuners, Easy Link, whatever it is you choose, and you start increasing the fuel flow and uprating the horsepower and torque on these trucks, that's where that factory intake system really becomes a bottleneck. The engineers design these trucks and the factory intakes to work at a specified horsepower rating, and when you throw 100 or 150 extra horsepower at them, those stock intake systems cannot flow the additional air needed. So couple this with performance tuning and you will see a large gain over the factory unit. That's where they shine the most, aside from looking great and sounding great. And of course the powder coat finish. A lot of people buy WCFab product for that bling under the hood and that awesome high quality powder coat and the customization that you get with powder coating. So this is our WCFab Gray, one of our most popular colors. This one, along with WCFab Red, Gloss Black, and Gloss White, are considered in-stock colors, and we have these colors on the shelf ready to ship. If you're in a hurry for a kit, on a time crunch, buying a last-minute gift for somebody, you can choose from one of our in-stock colors. If you're willing to wait a little bit longer, you have hundreds of different colors you can pick from. If you want to customize the underhood of your truck to whatever it is you choose, you can choose any of our custom colors for a small upcharge. If you've got any other questions on the product that we offer for 13 to 18, feel free to leave a comment below or reach out to our sales team. You can also check out on our website our dealer network tab. We've got dealers all across the country that can help you purchase and install this product. If it's just the intake system, or if you're looking for one of our high flow bundle kits that we make for the 4th gen as well, feel free to reach out to one of our awesome dealers. So that's a wrap. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Jason Wehrli.